Hey everyone, this is Lucid. I'm going to be doing a guide on how to win multiplayer games. There's a lot of great content on YouTube already for different game mechanics, different spells, how they work, different nations, ways to play them. There's some good single player content, there's some good multiplayer let's play content. What I don't really see a great one of yet is how you actually think about winning a multiplayer game. And I reference it a lot, kind of how I think about winning a multiplayer game in a lot of my Let's Plays. But I wanted to package everything together into a few videos, the point of which is to serve as a framework for what are overall strategies so you can kind of develop your own for playing and winning a multiplayer game. So how do you win a multiplayer game? The real key is you need to grow your power faster than your neighbors to the point where you're able to claim victory and they can't stop you. That's kind of it. Now, there's a ton that goes into that. Because in Dominions, diplomacy is such that nations are often compelled to attack the game leader, especially when victory is imminent. Therefore, you want to develop your power without being perceived as a threat until the power differential is strong enough for you to cope with the threat of everybody else attacking you. So I've talked a lot about power growth, and I'll talk much more about it as we get into the guide. But Dominions is a game where there are several positive feedback loops that allow you to build power exponentially. One of them is the more territory you have, the more income you're going to have. Therefore, the more armies you can have, so you can conquer more territory. And that applies in all phases of the game. The second is the more income you have, the more forts you have, the more mages you have, the more research you have, the more powerful armies you have, the more territory you have, and therefore the more income you have. And next, we have the more territories you have, the more gem income you have, and then therefore the more powerful armies and the more magic diversity you're going to have, and therefore more territories. And the final feedback loop is the better armies you have, the fewer losses you have when you fight battles, and therefore the more effective income you have because you're losing less to attrition. So basically, it's a game with strong positive feedback loops. So not only does your income go to giving you a bigger army than your smaller neighbors, but also gives you stronger armies through better research. Basically, this is a game where you do not want to be the small guy. There are research mechanics that curb or control this positive feedback loop. The main one is Upkeep. This slows the growth for dominant and large nations in the long run. For smaller nations with more losses and thereby less upkeep, upkeep is relatively less of a concern. But the point in all this is that this is a game of rapidly escalating power where it pays to be big, but not so big that everyone will gang up on you as the clear game leader. So as we go into more depth, we're going to do this by discussing a few key game concepts and how they relate to different phases of the game, early, mid, and late, and then also pretender creation. So the key concepts are balancing your power curve, having effective diplomacy, winning economic wars, and then winning battles. And these are kind of in order of importance. And the reason is because if you don't have a balanced power curve, it's going to be very difficult for you to do effective diplomacy. If you do not do effective diplomacy, it's going to be very difficult for you to economically win wars. And if you're not in a position to economically win wars, then you're going to have a lot of very painful battles. And actually, for battles, you can win the game without really winning major battles. And I know that sounds crazy, but I've definitely done it. And that's if you win the economic war. So winning battles will help you win the economic war, but it's not even necessary. Okay, so that wraps up my first video. The first one was really meant to be a very quick overview and intro, so you can decide if you want to watch the rest. This guide is really for players who already know how to play Dominions, so it's to get you hopefully from being a good beginner or a mid-level player to being a bit more advanced. It's not going to tell you really basic game mechanics or things like that. So the next video is going to be diving deeply into these game concepts I just outlined, and the videos after that will be talking about pretender creation and early game and mid game and late game respectively. Those videos will be much more focused on more concrete tactics, and I'll show, I think, a lot more in-game clips to demonstrate these strategies put in place. So thanks everyone for watching, and hope you enjoyed this series.